What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, division rivals? This is Stephen Hyder with Gate City Sports Channel, the sports channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. What's going on, everybody? Once again, my name is Stephen Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Channel. And if you are new to the channel, if I can ask you to do me a huge favor, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, guys. We are marching and pushing our way towards 1,000 subscribers. I really appreciate everyone that joins the channel. Hey, it keeps us motivated. It keeps us making videos. To all my old G's, you already know I'm going to ask you to do, guys. Go ahead and hit that like button. It's how we communicate with YouTube. It tells YouTube to go ahead and press this content out across the platform. All right, y'all. So, to begin with, let me just do a little, mea culpa here. My bad. A couple of you guys had sent me questions about corners, whether or not what I thought about them. And in my video yesterday, I misunderstood what some of you guys were saying, and I do apologize for that. Because the question I was asked to me was actually if I could I do a video or could I look into these players and give perspective on them, which I gave you that, but I misinterpreted that to mean that they were trade targets. I think someone else had phrased the question about Darius Slay as a trade target, and then I kind of read into the other players on that list as also trade targets. And it was like later on in the day, guys, I was like sitting down and I realized that like, wait a minute, Chris Harris Jr. and Logan Ryan they're not trade targets because they're going to be free agents. My bad, guys. All the things I said still stand. I still stand by the advanced analytics on all of them. All that information was correct, but I did misinterpret free agency versus the draft there. My bad, guys. It happens, man. I was excited to get back on here. It had been, like 4 or 5 days since I had made a video. I was excited. I should have slowed myself down and really paid attention a little closer to the actual comments. All right, y'all. So just a little, tidbit. If you guys want to get more interaction with myself and Philly Mike, we do have a co-hosted Facebook webpage. It's called the Python Audible. So Python Python Audible, Audible sports page. If you guys go there right now, we got a poll up where we're talking about with the 21st pick in the NFL draft, the Eagles will select. You guys can give us your input there. I just built a poll this morning before I made this video, guys, where basically I was talking about free agent wide receivers. Go over there, guys. We would appreciate you guys coming in. We love, being able to converse with you. And that's just a place where we can talk a little more and we can do a little more things that, we can't quite do on YouTube. All right, guys. With that, let's finish off this cornerback discussion. We're at the very end of the cornerback conversation, guys. So, yesterday, we talked about Chris Harris Jr., Logan Ryan, and Darius Slay. And I told you guys that in today's video, I had a surprise candidate for you. So in today's video, I'm going to give you 4 trade targets, okay? 4 trade targets for corner. I'm going to give you 2 veterans. I'm going to give you 2 younger guys. One of those guys I'm very high on. He's an under-the-radar kind of guy, and I'll tell you what, the value's there. So I'm just hoping, maybe old Howie Roseman has another trick up his sleeve and can maybe pluck this guy away from a certain team. All right, y'all, let's get into today's content.
We have a lot to do going forward. Going forward, we need to infuse youth in this team.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So the 4 guys I want to talk about today in today's video are Casey Hayward Jr. of the Los Angeles Chargers, DJ Hayden, formerly of the Oakland Raiders and currently with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Adoree Jackson of the Tennessee Titans, and my surprise pick, guys. This is a kid who's been on my radar. I watched him play a couple times last year, and this is my selling point to you. Imagine having a Jalen Mills. However, this Jalen Mills is about 1 second faster in his footwork. All right, y'all. My last one, Carlton Davis of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, let's jump into it. So the physical measurements of Casey Hayward Jr. stand as he's 5'11", 192 pounds. He's got 31/4-inch arm length. He's a 30-year-old veteran, and he runs about a 4.57 40-yard dash. Now, I know what you're going to say, which is, man, 4.57 is kind of getting up pretty close to what the problems we're having with Rasul Douglas and the problems we're having with Jalen Mills, and I do agree. But I do think sometimes just your overall football intelligence can improve upon your footwork a little bit, can improve upon separation. So the key to me is when I see these guys with kind of above 4.5s, time speed as corners, I look to their target separation. That's the key indicator to me of, okay, like this is going to be a problem. Or, okay, this guy clearly is a very instinctual football player and knows where to be on the field. Now, this is what I will say. We all know this. No matter how instinctual you are, no matter how smart you are, there's a point to where you just don't have the athleticism to keep up with certain players, and you would need over the top safety help. That can't be avoided here, guys. I'm not going to sit here and act like that's not a thing. We all know that's a thing. But physical measurements of Casey Hayward Jr. Now let's get into the actual analytics on this particular football player. Casey Hayward has been around the league for a while, and he's been featured on the NFL's top 100 players before. Uh, his snap share from last year, 91%, guys. He was in on 91% of the plays that he was available for. His targets allowed were 69, so that's about 4.6 a game. So let's just round it up and say 5 a game. His target rate was 17.6%, and that's always a pretty good indicator to me. I don't care what your like. I think that even if you have a really high catch rate, like I said, I like to be below. I like to see a guy below 60%. But if they're slightly above that 60% threshold, the next thing I would probably look at to analyze them would be their target rate. So if you're under 20% target rate, it means your coverage must be pretty good down in and down out. So there, we've got to take these kind of things into consideration. His routes defended are 392. I told you guys always look to be kind of right around that 300 mark because that tells me that we're talking about an experienced football player at least for that season. And that works out to about 26.1 a game, so 26 routes defended per game basically. As I was stating earlier, guys, when I look at a player who has less than ideal speed for me, when your 40 time is a little above a 4.5 and you're trying to play outside the NFL, I then need to look at your target separation. And when it comes to Casey Hayward, there are positives here. I mean, the guy's target separation is 0.66. That tells me even though he doesn't have my ideal, what I would like to see an outside cornerback have, he's sticking to receivers. They're not separating from him. That's a plus in my opinion. So target separation 0.66. His receptions allowed were 45 or roughly 3 a game. His receiving yards were 532 a game. Or I'm sorry, not a game, 532 in the season, or roughly 35.5 a game. He broke up 6 passes, surrendered 3 touchdowns, but had 3 interceptions. So the kid he's got ball skills. The guy can play the ball in the air. So far, okay, everything's looking good. And I can tell you, he's not going to have elite grading. I can tell you that right now just by looking at these numbers in my head because I've done these videos so many times now that I kind of can already feel where they're going before I get there. All right, Casey Hayward's burn rate, guys, is 0%, so he never surrendered any plays where a receiver gained more than 5 yards of separation from him. It's a big positive in my opinion. His catch rate was 65.2%. That was the number that really alarmed me when I first saw it because I'm like, 65%, it's a high number. But when you're only being targeted 17%, receivers are only on average gaining 0.66, percentage of a yard from you, so less than a yard of separation from you. I could then kind of maybe measure and balance and feel somewhat positive about a 65.2% catch rate. Although normally that is a trigger for me. You guys know that I like to see that number below 60%, or it makes me feel a little suspicious about the player you're presenting to me. But in this particular situation, all the other numbers kind of line up to make me say, okay, I can understand why other people are high on this particular player. His passer rating allowed is a 97.4, so he's below that 100 passer rating threshold that I look for. Okay. And his overall coverage rating is a negative 0.6. You guys know that I look for a 0, so an evening out or back. So he's just slightly over that line for me, but this isn't bad. I mean, I would probably round him up to a -1, but he had an okay season. In my opinion, Casey Hayward's the kind of guy that I could see the Eagles trading for if they plan on addressing corner in the draft, and we're already a very young team at corner, so we do need a guy that we know can play, is dependable, and has some skill set. Then I could see the Eagles maybe looking into trading for a guy like Casey Hayward. That's the scenario and situation that makes sense to me. However, I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that this is the best option that I've covered during this entire segment that I've done over the past 2 weeks. Nonetheless, I see the intrigue here. I see the appeal to this particular player. The number 2 trade target out of this veteran group, so the last of the veteran groups I wanted to cover today, is DJ Hayden of the Jacksonville Jaguars. DJ Hayden formerly played, I believe, with Oakland, I want to say. He's a 5'11", 191-pound guy. He's got 31 and 1/8 inch arm length, so got a little more arm length than like a Casey Hayward. He's 30 years old as well. He runs a 4.45 40-yard dash, so he does have a little faster footwork than Casey Hayward does. So he's got the ability to keep up maybe a little more elite speed than a guy like Casey Hayward. But like I said, man, measurements are all nice and everything. I mean, they give us a little insight, but I really need to see the advanced analytics and actually see how people are assessing your performance to get a feel for who you are as an actual candidate here. So, without further ado, let's take a look at DJ Hayden and look at his advanced analytics. All right, guys. So DJ Hayden played in approximately 60.5%, so 61% of all snaps he was eligible to play in last season. His had some versatility to him because he played about 47.8%, roughly 48% in the slot. So he played damn near as much in the slot as he did on the outside. Could lead to some confusion here with DJ Hayden because is he a slot corner? Is he an outside corner? Clearly, not even the Jacksonville Jaguars knew. We can look at this as being versatile, or we can look at this as being questionable in what he is. His targets allowed were 62, or roughly 4.4 a game. His target rate was 21%. Look, under that 25% threshold that I look for. So it tells me that his coverage couldn't have been that bad because he was only targeted 21%. His routes defended were 295. That's about 5 routes short of the 300 kind of threshold I look for, but it was close enough where I felt like, okay, 5 routes is 5 routes. That's about 21 a game. All right, DJ Hayden's target separation is 0.68%. So it's 0.68 of a yard, so 68% of a yard. So it's pretty good. He's definitely got tight coverage. His receptions allowed were 41, or roughly 2.9 a game, so about 3 a game. His receiving yards given up were 533, or about 38.1 a game. He broke up 5 passes, surrendered 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. So you probably wouldn't count him as having the same ball skills as a guy like Casey Hayward. I don't think he's quite in that category of playing the ball in the air, basically. DJ Hayden's burn rate was a 0%, so he didn't surrender any, play to where the receiver gained more than 5 yards of separation from him. So that's definitely a positive here. His catch rate allowed was 66.1%. Once again, just like the same issue we were having earlier when I was looking at Casey Hayward, when you look at DJ Hayden, that's above 60% threshold for catch rate. It does make me concerned. I mean, he was targeted a little more than DJ Hayden, but I mean, he was under the 25% threshold. His separation was a 0.68. You got to take all those things into consideration. That concerns me. And what follows next concerns me even more, which was the passer rating allowed being a 121.6. That one makes me feel like, okay, if you're forcing me to pick, if the outcome of the Eagles is they're going to go get a veteran guy, so they're going to look for a Darius Slay, like I covered yesterday, right? They're going to look for a Casey Hayward or a DJ Hayden. I would take Darius Slay and Casey Hayward long before I would prefer to have DJ Hayden. Personally, just looking at the analytics on this guy. And his overall coverage rating is probably not surprising to learn. It's a negative 6.8. It's not as bad as some players, but I certainly think that there are much better candidates out there that we could be looking for. To me, this would almost feel like a desperation move if we targeted a guy like DJ Hayden. Either that or somebody is seeing something we're not seeing and is very confident in this kid's ability to put it together. But I don't see that. I mean, if this was a young kid, maybe you could justify it. Like clearly there would be tools there, but he's not young at 30, so I'm not as comfortable with this move. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on to our young draft targets we go. And the first guy up is a guy I called for during the trade deadline. He didn't have the greatest of seasons this year, but if you take a look at what he did last year and you look at some of the game film he had last year, like, the kid has talent. This was a down year for him, though. Maybe that works in our favor that he had a down year. Maybe the Tennessee Titans don't value him as highly as they did once before. And that's Adoree Jackson, guys. Adoree Jackson would be my next trade target. So Adoree Jackson, 5'10", 186 pounds. Not the tallest guy. All right. Definitely got that Sidney Jones build where maybe he's a little too light. Maybe we'd like him to put on another 5 pounds or so of muscle. Arm length, 31 and 3/8 inch arms, or the length of the arm. So he's got a little bit of wingspan to him. He's 24 years old, and he runs a 4.42 40-yard dash. So he's got some speed. He's got a little bit of length to him. Let's take a look and see his advanced analytics to get a feel for how good of a player and how good of a fit he would be in Philadelphia. Adoree Jackson played in 75.8%, roughly rounded up, let's just say 76% of all snaps he was available for. He surrendered 68 targets, roughly about 6.2 a game. His target rate was about 20.7%, which is very low. Like I said, it's below that 25% threshold, and the closer you get to 20% or below it, the better I feel about you and your coverage, because that means opposing quarterbacks did not want to throw the ball your way very often. These are positive signs here. He defended 328 routes, so he meets that 300 route threshold that I always speak of in terms of experience, and that worked out to be about 29.8 a game. What stands out to me here on these numbers here, guys, is that he was in on 76% of snaps that he was eligible for, right? Still had to defend 68 targets or 6.2 a game. Was still only targeted 20.7% of the time that he was in the game and defended over 300 routes. That tells me that Tennessee must have been thrown at a lot. So he seems to have held his own from what we see so far in terms of his target rate compared to the snap usage he was played in, compared to the actual amount of times he was looked to be thrown at. So let's take a look and let's get a little more into the nitty-gritty details of what's going on here. Okay, Adoree Jackson's target separation was 0.99. So roughly, let's just say this. It was a yard. On average, gave about a yard separation between him and the receivers as the ball was coming in, which for a 24-year-old corner, it's not bad. I mean, he's definitely plays with a little aggressiveness, but that's not bad. I mean, there's room for improvement, so that's kind of good as well. His receptions allowed are 48, roughly about 4.4 a game. He gave about 538 receiving yards, roughly 48.9 a game, so 49 a game. His pass breakups were 6. He surrendered 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. My guess, without knowing too much about Adoree Jackson, is it's very likely that Adoree Jackson was probably playing a little more man coverage and not so much zone. That's normally a really good indicator when you see people are breaking up passes but not getting interceptions. It's generally speaking a good sign. They're playing a lot of man, not zone coverage. So I'd have to really go confirm it by film, but that's just what my instincts and all my coaching and playing experience tells me from looking at this right now. All right, let's get a little further into the details here, guys. Burn rate was 0, so that means he didn't give up any plays of 5 yards or greater separation from receiver to corner as the ball came in, which definitely it's not a stat you want to see happening too often with any cornerback on your team. The thing that raises major alarm bells to me is the 70.6% catch rate. Okay. Like I said, when you look at catch rate, you have to weigh this out by how many times the player was targeted, by the separation gained by the player, then look at the catch rate, and then kind of weigh that in together. This to me is something that does concern me. Now, he had a much better season the year prior. Hopefully, like I said, you could look at these numbers and make a case to where maybe Tennessee says, like, okay, like, we like this kid, but we're not married to this kid. Because listen, none of these things matter unless they're willing to separate and part ways with any of these players. So that's the aspect we have to look into here. His passer rating, 116.2. Not good. There's no way of saying that, guys. And as you might suspect, his coverage rating as a result is a negative 17.7. Here's the bottom line to me when it comes to Adoree Jackson. You're not grabbing this player due to his production from last season. You're grabbing him for what he might be in the future. You're simply saying here, you're scouting and you're looking at the prospects of what this kid could develop into. He does have some track record of productivity. I mean, you go to the year prior and his numbers are much different. He's a much better football player from the season before. But look, this is a gamble. This is a risk. This is a young guy. We already have a ton of young guys we're developing. I have faith in Manuel, our new cornerback coach, but you don't want to put too much on the guy's plate. So I like Adoree Jackson. I'm not opposed to Adoree Jackson, but I'm not going to sit here and try to advocate that if we get this guy, like, this is the move. This is the big move. Like, no, I mean, like, I would understand where the Eagles are going. They're adding talent, but this is definitely some question marks to Adoree Jackson's game. All right, guys, I got one more prospect for you. This is the prospect that I was most excited about as I kind of looked into him. I think that there's potential here. There's something to this guy. So the final prospect of this video that I want to talk about today, guys, in terms of a possible trade target, and this is number 2 of the young guys that I think might possibly be available. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know the true intentions of Tampa Bay, but this is a team that really needs to rebuild. If I was their GM and stuff, I probably would look at Carlton Davis, the player I'm going to talk about, and add him into my future plans because I think this kid has a lot of talent. However, I don't know their scenario. I don't know their situation, and they might feel differently about the kid. And I got to tell you, if I'm Howie Roseman, I'm picking up this phone and I'm calling about this kid because this kid can play football. Carlton Davis is a 6'1", 206-pound corner. He's got that height. He's got that size. He can match up against the bigger and stronger receivers in this league. He has a 32 and 3/4 inch arm length. He's got a wingspan to him, guys. He's definitely got some wingspan to him. He's a very young guy at 23 years old. I do believe that this past season was his rookie year, if I'm not mistaken. He ran a 4.53 40-yard dash. Look, it's a tad bit slower than I like. I like to see that 4.5 or under number, but it's not like he's completely too slow to play the outside. I mean, he'll be susceptible to certain players. But once again, I'm going to look at that 40-yard dash, compare that to the target separation, to the amount of target percentage on the year, his passer rating, his burn rate. I'm going to factor all that in to come up with what I believe if this guy can actually play or not. All right, let's keep going. Let's jump into the actual analytics of the player. Carlton Davis played in 87.7% of all snaps he was eligible to play in for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's a great number. He allowed 103 targets. That's really not a surprise when we look at Tampa Bay's defense, guys. This was a defense that was on the field a lot. That's 8.6 a game, so you can round that up and legitimately say 9 targets a game. It means he was targeted. But then when you look at the target rate, this is what shocked me. I thought the target rate was going to be so much higher than this. It's 23.4%. It just tells you the state of Tampa Bay's defense. I mean, Tampa Bay needs to improve in so many places. That's why I feel like there is an outside chance that they might deal this kid because they need a lot of draft picks. They need a lot of younger guys. They need a lot of pieces to rebuild that team. I mean, like I said, I would personally keep this kid because I think this kid can actually play, but I do get it. He defended 440 routes on the season, guys. That's a lot of routes. That works out to roughly 36.7 a game, so 36, 37 routes a game. This kid got a lot of mileage, a lot of usage, and we can see that from this. All right, guys. So 4.53 speed, I think he's a first year. Like I said, I think last year was his first year. I think he was a rookie. If not, I mean, he's only been in the league a year or two. I mean, obviously, he's only 23 years old, guys. His target separation was 1.11. Got 4.53 speed. He's a rookie. Look, he's given up a little more than a yard of separation on average. I don't know if that's necessarily due to speed. I don't know if that's necessarily due to inexperience. I would imagine it's probably a combination of both, but I do think that I would lean more towards experience being the bigger determination, and there's room for that number to come down. I would expect this kid to keep moving that number down to that 1 mark. His receptions allowed were 58, roughly 4.8 a game or 5 a game. He gave up about 695 receiving yards or 57.9 a game, so 58 a game. This kid can play the ball. He broke up 14 passes. He did surrender 6 touchdowns. Like I said, that defense was not very good in Tampa Bay, guys. So it's really hard to kind of judge some of this stuff when it comes to just really atrocious overall play by defense. I thought the kid played pretty well given the circumstances of what he was being placed into. He did have 1 interception on the year. So, like I said, I like what I'm seeing so far. There's room for concern. I get why some people might not be as high on Carlton Davis as I am, but hopefully some of you guys are kind of getting why I like this kid so much, why I think this kid is going to be very good in this league. Okay, his burn rate, guys. Burn rate was at 2.9%. It's not horrible. It's not, like I said, guys, I'm not advocating that's a phenomenal number. Like, no, the ideal number there is a goose egg, right? It's a 0. But an inexperienced rookie, I understand why his burn rate might be up there around the 2.9. His catch rate allowed, guys, he gave up 56.3% receptions, which, given the amount of times this kid was targeted, only surrendered 56, which is underneath that 60% threshold. Look, I'm impressed, man. This kid has got ball skills. He does fight for the football to try to get away from receivers. Like, so far, I do like what I see. Probably a little over aggressive, a little inexperienced. We see that with his burn rate. We see that a little bit with his target separation. But we definitely can see there's something to work with here as well. His passer rating allowed was a 105. To me personally, like, okay, it's not that 100% threshold, but he's within the realm of respectability. You know, you got to keep developing him. We need to get that down. But hey, not as bad as I thought. And it's not as bad as some of these other guys who've got a couple more years experience than him that are on this list. And lastly, his coverage rating. I wasn't the only one who was excited about this kid. His coverage rating is a plus 23.9. So basically a 24. That's pretty good. Positive 24. Like, I'm not the only person out there who's looking at this kid's film. And this is one of the few people I did watch film on and walked away with going, wow, This kid's actually pretty damn good. He can play.
And getting hit is Ryan as he fires it downfield. And
Guys, I just wanted to give you a little bit of what I saw on film. That was against Calvin Ridley. That was a 50-50 ball, a ball that Calvin Ridley probably makes a lot of plays on. And there we see Carlton Davis going toe-to-toe with Calvin Ridley and coming down with that football. That's the kind of thing I kept seeing on tape. This guy plays the ball well, even if he's not securing the catch. Like, he fights for the football, and I like this kid a lot on film, man. I mean, on film, it looked good. You can see there that's off coverage. That was off coverage. I mean, that's something we run a lot here in Philadelphia. I think he's a good fit here. I don't know the interest in Tampa Bay to deal the kid. I can't predict that, but if I'm Howie Roseman, like I said, I'm picking up the phone. I'm calling. I'm calling day and night. I'm calling until they basically send the police and tell me to stop calling. So that's pretty much the way I look at this kid, and that's the way I view him. He would probably be my number one target here. But I want to thank you all for tuning in. You know I'm going to ask you guys to do. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Guys, if you're an OG, you've been watching this video, come on, guys. You've been on this video now for like, what, 25, 30 minutes? It's time to subscribe, guys. Come on. You don't watch a video for 25, 30 minutes if you don't like it. All right. So, question of the day, guys. Here's my question of the day for you guys. If you were Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles, would you sign a veteran to bring in some experience to this cornerback room and leadership and then draft a young cornerback? Or would you sign a young guy who can come in and compete for a starting spot and then trust your new defensive backs coach, Manuel, to develop this talent, the talent in the room? Neither of these options, prevent you from drafting a cornerback as well in the draft, but both of them probably do give you some insurance in case the pieces don't align right and we cannot get the guys that we need. All right, y'all, I'm out of here. Y'all know what time it is. It's time to sign off the video. So we're going to do a little something where we go E-A-E-L-E-S. All right, y'all, let's go Eagles. All right, guys, we're going to be switching gears. I'm going to be talking about pass rush. I'm going to be talking about the linebacker. All that's coming up this week. I got one more video to go where I'm going to tie all this cornerback mess together, where I'm going to tell you exactly, I'm going to lay out a few different ways that we can address the cornerback. I'm going to go back and review what I said in the draft. I'm going to review what I said about free agency. I'm going to review what I said about the trade market. And I'm going to tie it together into different scenarios and ways to do it. That's going to be the last video, which will be tomorrow on corners. And then we're going to be talking about linebackers. We're going to be talking about a little bit about defensive ends. I've already covered safety. Someone made a comment about that. Guys, go back and watch the full videos. Safety's already been covered. All right, y'all. Peace. I'm out of here.